Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. I know I missed last week, and if you had watched the previous week's Sit and Talk, then you'll know why. I went on a staycation. So I was off for a week, and it rained pretty much the entire week, which made the staycation really boring. But still, getting a break from work is good. Good for your psyche and just good for everything else, even if it's really boring and you wanted to get a bunch of yard work done, and it just rained instead for 4 to 5 of the days that you really could have gotten the work done. Yay! Okay, anyway, so I am back, ready to do another Sit and Talk. Today is Thursday, May 8th. This will be posted May 9th, of course, and I've printed off the top comments based on your votes. I might change this after a while and do a bunch of the top comments and then a few that I kind of handpick. I know that some people would prefer that I can just go through and selectively pick them. The problem is just the time to do it. Right as I said before, I just go in and I have a little URL that I have custom made that just shows it in this kind of format, and I can just click Control or hit Control P and print, and I don't have to worry about formatting it, don't have to worry about removing icons and all the other stuff, and it just prints it off really nicely for me, just like this. And so it's just the extra work of actually going through it. Taking that, what, 5-10 minutes to do so just would take too long. But anyway, probably take longer than that actually, which is why I don't do it. But still working out the best way to do this. And the whole first person to post a comment thing, that works fine until we were having consistently lots of people posting comments, and then it was consistently the same people who could watch it at a certain time of day because of time zones or work related things or just that kind of stuff. So I want to start off a little different though, because I want to, normally it's me answering your questions or your comments, but I want to start off with a question to you. In fact, who I'm really looking to ask this question to is our European viewers. And let me tell you why. Today, I was actually home today for the first half because my wife was at preschool with my 4-year-old. Once a month she has to, it's a co-op preschool, so once a month she needs to actually go in and be one of the assistants or helpers or whatever, and so I stay home and watch my 2-year-old daughter. But while I was there, I was just doing some research, just kind of give me some time to think, and I was just doing some analyzing of our stats on both YouTube and on Google Analytics, which is what we use to track the stats on our website, MiniWargaming.com. And I found some interesting things that I already knew, but they've kind of made me think even more. And then I went, I'll talk about it, I'll just tell you what it is, and then we'll kind of develop it from there, and I want to get your feedback. And that is that the majority of our viewers, yeah, let's say majority, are from North America.
Yes.
And that makes sense because, we're in North America, but at the same time, the internet is global. I got really thrown off by him saying yes, he was actually answering somebody else. And I'm like, yes, what? But anyways, majority are from North America. Oh, I forgot to bring my book that had all the stats that I had written out and everything. But anyways, when I did the analytics, when you look at population size, actually, no, not population size, actual sales of Games Workshop products. I opened up, because they're the only public company that does miniature wargaming, at least the only one that I know of. And so you can actually see their stats, and they break it down by region. And it's really interesting because you look at the North American region, and it does a certain amount. It does basically, it's roughly the same in all of North America as to what they make just in the United Kingdom alone. The United Kingdom is a little lower by a couple percentage, by a couple million pounds. But in the grand scheme of things, it's like a difference of 26% of sales are in North America and 24% or 23% are in the UK, the United Kingdom, not Europe, just the United Kingdom. And then continental Europe is actually even more than North America, if I remember properly. Even if it wasn't, even if they're exactly the same, when you do, so when you look at the amount of traffic that we have on our websites and watching our videos, it's not the same proportions. We have 52% of our viewers are in North America. But when you look at Games Workshop sales stats, only 24% of their sales come from North America. So there's a big difference. In fact, if you do the scaling, now I know we don't just do Warhammer 40K, but let's be honest, that's our bread and butter. It's the one that we do the most, and so we could extrapolate from there. Like I know we do War Machine as well, which is started in the States, so it might have a bigger fall in the States, whereas like Warhammer started in the UK, so it has a bigger fall in the UK. Whatever. But anyway, so when I look at that, and I actually do the math, we should have about 2.5 times the amount of European visitors if we were to have the same percentages as the Games Workshop sales. So I'm looking at that and thinking, so why is that? Why is it that we have so fewer European visitors? There's still a lot of them. There's tons of them. Like when we look at it by country, United States gives us our most traffic, followed by the United Kingdom, which is pretty phenomenal if you think about it, because the United States is like a 350 million population, and the UK is like, what, 60 million or 70 million population? So it's like a sixth or a fifth of the population of the States, and yet it provides almost the same amount of traffic as the States too. So that's how many people are into Games Workshop products, or into wargaming I should say, in the UK. It's just, and it makes sense because it's kind of where it really got popular, where it really got started, with Games Workshop starting there way before the internet was around. And so it's a population dense place where the company actually started and opened up all sorts of stores, and so it just makes perfect sense that it would still be going strong there. It's really picked up in North America, but percentage-wise, when you look at North America, the population is really spread out compared to Europe. And so this being a social hobby where you know, regardless of the fact that the internet's around to spread the imagery of the hobby and get people into it, you still require people to be close to each other so they can play. And so because the majority of people, or a large percentage of people in North America, over, you know, comparing to the UK and Europe, are going to be in more rural areas, or yeah, it's just not as dense population-wise. That's going to be a contributing factor as well. But you know, putting that all aside, we're just looking at actual numbers of where it is, and we're so much less with our European visitors. So it's kind of exciting actually, because we've been growing, and we've yeah, the business is going well, and yet there's all these European visitors that we don't have. There's all sorts. Maybe if we went to, I would love to do like an informal poll, like if we went to like Adepticon, for example, and you know, not me or Dave because people recognize us, but having like a third party just ask people randomly, do you know who Mini Wargaming is? Like, how well do you know them? And then went to some convention in Europe, in the UK, somewhere where they knew Warhammer 40K. Like I know if they went somewhere that was like historical wargaming or something else, then a lot of people aren't going to know us because, well, we don't cover those games. But something that, some convention where Warhammer 40K is really dominant, like Adepticon, you see that. Warhammer 40K is very dominant there. And then run the same survey with them and say, do you know Mini Wargaming? I would suspect that there'd be a much smaller percentage of people there who know us than ones that say Adepticon. And so, so my question is, why is that? What has made the difference? And my first thought was, well, I remember hearing that there's less people on the internet in Europe than there is in North America. That North America kind of, percentage-wise, had more internet usage. And so I checked on that. I looked at some stats online from a few different sources. And that used to be the case, but it's not really it's no longer the case. In fact, according to one statistic, or one report, it's actually percentage-wise higher now in Europe than it is in North America, whereas, you know, in 2005 it was way opposite. There was way higher percentage of North Americans on the internet than there were Europeans on the internet. But now that's no longer the case. So we could even just, you know, disregard the statistics and say it's an even percentage. And so now that's not looking at the wargaming community, so it's not going to perfectly carry over there. But at the same time, I can't just say, well, Europeans are not online as much, and therefore, you know, my business is all online, and therefore they don't connect. That's not it either. So my question to you Europeans, and this is a very informal kind of poll, and I know it's not going to give me any scientific data that I can really use to determine all the reasons, but it might give some insights, is why do you think it is? Like the thoughts that come into my mind, and this is going to sound funny, but is it because we're Canadian and not European? And like I said, that'll sound funny. Like, I'm not saying that Europeans are racist, I'm just saying that we just have different cultures. And it is different cultures. Our accents are different. Like, I don't have a British accent. And so, like, whereas Beasts of War, for example, all those guys are British. And so they all have British accents or Irish accents or whatever their accents are, Scottish, Irish. I know that I think they're from Ireland. I know the one guy had a Scottish accent, I thought. I don't know all the accents, so I'm not exactly sure. And so is that it? Do you find that American humor and American accents don't appeal to you as much? Which, like I said, that's not a racist thing. To have your own culture appeal to you more, that makes sense. You grew up with it, right? To find comfort foods are usually the things that you've eaten growing up is not racist. That's culture, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying you should hate people with a different accent than yourself, or hate people that have different humor than yourself. That's not what we're talking about here. So I don't want to get into that kind of stuff. So, but what do you think? And this is specifically to the European ones, unless there's some North American people here who have insights into this, who know about it because maybe they've studied it for some reason. We've got a lot of people that watch these sit and talks that have really good analytical minds, and I can tell that from the comments that are posted. So there's some really good thinkers out there. There's a lot of smart people watching this show. So maybe you can help me out. And it's more of a closed group. It's not just like, I'm not just asking it to the world and posting this on their general YouTube channel for the general YouTube kind of commenters to comment. And I'm not saying our mini wargaming YouTube commenters aren't good, but just in general, when you post stuff on YouTube, you're just going to get kind of nonsense. But here we have a more tight-knit group of just a few thousand people rather than hundreds of thousands of people. And those who tend to follow and think a lot more and post really good comments. So what do you think? I'd really like your insights as to why it is that at this moment we have a lot less European viewers than really, percentage-wise, we should when we look at the entire wargaming community. Another thought that I had, I might as well share this one, is that we used to have a store, and the store could only really sell to Canadians and somewhat to Americans. And so the store brought in a lot of people because they'd be on Google searching for Space Marine Battle Force or whatever it is they would search for, and they'd find our store, and so then they'd frequent our store and therefore start watching our videos, and so our store also helped to build the initial viewership. Maybe. Or maybe it's because our server is in Texas, and so Google's search engine algorithms are going to naturally send people, when people are doing searches, they're going to naturally send people to websites that are hosted in countries that are closer to them because it might be more relevant. And that actually has some truth behind it there. Like if I'm searching for plumber, Google would be smarter to show me plumbers around my area than plumbers in Europe or somewhere outside of my area. And so maybe that's contributed to it, but I don't know. I really don't know. And then the second question would be, after if you can post a question or the comment as to why you think that we have less European people than we should watching our videos, would be the second one would be, what do you think we could do to attract those European customers? Any thoughts on that? Now, if you want to actually post a comment or a question aside from that as well that I can answer, because I probably won't read everybody's responses in this next one, I'd appreciate if you actually post two separate comments. So one answering my questions, so the two questions, and it can be long. It could be a nice long comment, don't worry, because I'll probably actually read through these throughout the week because I'm interested in your responses there. And then post a separate comment that might be a question that you want answered in the next sit and talk. And I'll probably read a couple of the ones that I think represent what a lot of people are saying, or that I find in particular insightful, or that give me some ideas. So there you go. Very different format to the start of the show. I know that means I'm going to get to less comments, but sometimes I got to ask you the questions, because it's not just about me. Even though the show, I guess, is kind of about me. Sit and talk with Matthew, right? So kind of about me, but that's, it's about you and me, us interacting. There we go. You ask me questions, I reply. Now I'm asking you questions, and you get to reply. So let's jump into the questions that we have here. Snakeroot. Hey Matt, it's Steve. And by Steve, that's the Steve who's going to start working for us soon. I was excited to hear Chris's offer to be my assistant when I start there. I have never had my very own lackey before. Thanks a bunch, Chris. That was very nice of him. And yes, you are going to become a supervisor, and you can tell him to do whatever you want, within reason. Keep it professional. You can get him go get your lunch, or clean up after you, or keep your office clean. Yeah, paint your models. Yeah, we've even got like a whip made. get them working. Or if that doesn't work, we got a long stick with a little pokey end.
Pokey end?
Yeah, a pokey end. It's not a knife. Just for everybody, so you know, we're not gonna like actually like cause serious injuries. It's just more like a sharpened stick. But then you kind of like I took the sharp end of the stick and I smacked it against concrete a few times just to flatten it out a little bit. So it's just more like a blunt kind of thing, but not like totally blunt because that would defeat the purpose of a pointy stick. Anyways, Scoutmaster 3000. In the campaign Snegabog's Greed, I've noticed that Dave uses and loses a lot of Assault Marines. In the first 4 missions, we've seen 90 Assault Marines, of which 40 have been wounded in battle. You mentioned that there is the equivalent of 1 company of Blood Angels, or roughly 100 infantry and 20 vehicles, according to Games Workshop, stationed on the planet. If this is the case, out of the 100 Space Marines, are 90 of them trained to use assault jetpacks? And what were the consequences of potentially losing 40 of them in missions, 1A and 1B? In addition, how many Land Raiders does Captain Spaghetti actually have access to? And if 6 of them explode each battle, when does he run out? If this is supposed to be a training world, where are all the scouts? So, to answer your question first off, I agree, the proportions are off. Now, like 40 of them were wounded, and like we could kind of look at some of them being able to be healed and come back. Like when we're looking at any game really, when somebody goes down, like they fail their armor check and they're removed from play, even the game will sometimes say in their fluff that it doesn't necessarily mean that they're dead. It could just mean that they're wounded enough that they're out of the rest of the game. And so, you know, on a narrative campaign, that's especially true. But you're right, the fact that there's so many Assault Marines compared to Tactical Marines, that's more a function of what Dave owns. See, we have that limit. I wish that we had access to an infinite number of everything, and that would mean that we could do everything perfectly to fluff, but we don't. And so we have to kind of do that. He doesn't have any scouts for his Blood Angels. I know for a training world, it would almost make sense that everything is a scout, but because of scouts to training. But even like non-scouts could do training, right? So we have to kind of have a little more looseness based on that, just because the limits in the models that we possess. That's really what it comes down to. The 6 land speeders, you've seen them come back. Like they were wrecked, but he won the mission where he used them, so they could have easily taken them back and repaired them. And so that's why you keep seeing them. So it's usually the same. Like and we've even talked about this because there's been times where he's like, can I bring 4 dreadnoughts? And I'm like, well, would there be 4 dreadnoughts? And he wanted to bring a bunch of sanguinary priests. And I'm like, well, would there be a bunch of... A lot of times when we're looking at what to bring, we would crack open the Blood Angel Codex, and it actually has that list of the chapter organization, and it tells you everything that it has, at least in general. And so we could look at that and say, I don't think it would make sense for that to be here because there's only this many. So why would it be here? And so it's all very rough. Like we're not doing the perfect, like keeping track of exactly what is being brought. We're just doing our best with what we have, basically. So that's why you're seeing that. This leads me to what I think could be a cool campaign idea. I think it would be neat to show the whole Space Marine force, models permitting, at the beginning of the campaign and say that's all the Space Marine player has to work with until reinforcements arrive. At the end of every battle, roll a d6 for every model out of the wounds, on a 5+ is destroyed. There would be tons of opportunities for field promotions, and every battle brother loss would be a big deal, just like it is in the 40k fluff. The Space Marine player would have to carefully choose when and where to deploy their forces, and to minimize losing losses would be just as important as winning battles. As viewers, we would get attached to the whole army in addition to the characters as losses accumulate and things get more desperate. It might be too late to implement this into the current campaign, but in the obligatory campaign, including the newly founded mini-working chapter, ... That is a wonderfully great idea. Other people have given that idea before, and I love it. And we will definitely use that in future campaigns. I don't think it'll be like every narrative campaign will have to run like that, because it's not necessary. But I do think it's a really cool idea. In fact, I already have a really neat idea for a future campaign. And in this campaign, I don't want to give any details away because it's going to be a while before I can do this one. But in this campaign, there will definitely be a limit. There's like a predetermined army with war gear and everything that has no way to get reinforcements or different war gear. And so it's like literally down to what they're equipped with. Like sure, if a guy with a missile launcher is killed, then we could say that the missile launcher can get picked up by another tactical marine because it's, you know, it's a missile launcher, right? But it'll be tracked that way, so it'll be very interesting. Cracker Spin. That was Owen. You all saw it. Owen was walking past in the back. I ain't crazy, am I? I think he was in for our War Machine battle report. He's in our War Machine League. So Sombrero Boy. Hey Matt, I'm really enjoying the current narrative campaign. Any chance of seeing a campaign with the mini Wargaming Marines in the future? Of course, they're all getting painted up right now. Once this batch is done being painted up, I think we'll have about 4,000 or 5,000 points, which is probably enough to get started. And you might think, that's way more than enough to get started, but remember with a narrative campaign, you need variety. And in order to have variety, you have to have a lot of guys. Like for example, in the Tyranid and Necron campaign, I had access to 14,000 points of Tyranids. And that's why at the beginning I could do like pure Genestealer and Lictor armies, and then later on I could have like I had one mission where there was like 100 Hormagaunts, and then another mission where it was lots of monstrous creatures and flyers. It allows for that variety, and if we don't have enough points, then the narrative campaign will kind of just get very repetitive because it's just the same army over and over again. So 5,000 points is probably the minimum I would say to be able to use in a narrative campaign, and we definitely would like upwards of 8,000 or 9,000 to really be able to hold a good one. So, miso miso. Hey Matt, hope you had a good holiday. Thank you. From the perspective of Europe, what? Did you already? How did you know I was going to ask that question? From the perspective of Europe, there's a lot of good stuff about North America. It's kind of weird that I have this comment here. I was wondering from your perspective, what do you think the best thing about Canada is compared to the US? And the best thing about the US compared to Canada? I'm interested as to how the different nations view each other. Ooh, that's a tough one. Ooh, I would say the one reason I would move to the States would be for better weather. Because where I live right now, except for like maybe like BC, like living on the coast, you don't get much warmer than where we are right here. And we just had like the longest winter ever. Ugh. And yeah, I'm gonna complain about it because I hated it. So long, and I know other places got colder. I don't care. This is where I live. And just by the end of it, I was like, oh, I hate winter. I remember when I was a missionary for my church and I went to Tahiti, when I left, people said, you are going to miss the seasons, the change of the seasons. You're just going to have hotness all the time, year-round, and you're going to miss it. Well, I'll tell you, 2 years later, when I came back in the middle of a snowstorm where I had to shovel snow for 7 days straight on a humongous driveway because we live out in the country with my parents, I did not miss it one little bit. In fact, right before I left to go to Tahiti, there was a snowstorm, and I was shoveling every day for a week straight. And we're talking like this is a driveway big enough that, and we didn't have a snowplow for some reason, or big snow blowers. It's not like back in the day they didn't have those. We just didn't have one. I don't know why. And so we'd spend like 2 hours shoveling this driveway, and then the wind would blow, and all the drifts would go back. Oh, so no, I did not miss winter. So I would love to move somewhere like Georgia, like Atlanta, Georgia, because the weather's just kind of nice. There's no perfect place to live. Like, if I could say what a perfect place would be somewhere where year-round it's like 23 degrees. Yeah. And then like it gets cooler to like 18 degrees so you can enjoy kind of that cool Christmas. And then maybe there's like a month or two where it goes up on average to like 26 or 27 so you could really enjoy swimming more. But no, just like a nice temperate 23 degrees year-round. That's what I would do. I would want to live there. But there's nowhere that does that. Not in our world. If we pulled it further away from the sun, then maybe around the equator we would get that. Because the equator is like around the equator is the only place that really has a regular temperature, right? And I guess that the Arctic poles, like the extremes, right? Everywhere else the sun hits it on an angle, and so at one time of the year it's hot and the other time of the year it's cold. So that would be what I think would be better about the States. But politics and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. It's hard to really... politics is so complicated and so far from perfect everywhere that it's hard to really have a good conversation about that. The one thing that I would miss, though, would be socialized healthcare. And I know some people will be like, oh, socialized healthcare is of the devil, or it doesn't work, and private healthcare is better, or whatever. But I like it. I like it this way. I like not having to think about it and not worry about it, and all those myths about longer wait times and all the other stuff aren't true. You can look it up. It's actually published. And I like published on the Canadian website. They show wait times and all that. It's, you know, for your important stuff, it's fine. So I think that's what I would say I like about Canada. But yeah, I don't know really else to say. Like, patriotically, They're both great countries. US, I would also like to move to the US because it would be better for business. Just for so many reasons. We have access to so many more things there. But that's more a function of population, I think. Because we're like 35 million and they're 350 or something like that. So they have 10 times our size. So once again, the population is going to be more concentrated, which means you're going to have better services. Like shipping is way cheaper. You have access to Amazon.com instead of Amazon.ca. Right now, if you really want to use Amazon.com, which has like infinitely larger selection than Amazon.ca, then you have to like, you get somebody across the border to get it, and then you go across the border to get it, and you come back, and that's a big hassle. So there you go. There's my comparison. And how do you guys view the UK and Europe? What kind of news do you hear, and do you ever want to come over and visit for a trip? How do I view it? I don't know. It's hard to really... How do I view the UK and Europe? I would say, love the accents. I find them funny. Not funny as in like I laugh at somebody who has it, but for some reason, when somebody tries to be funny with a British accent, it's just much more funny than somebody with an American accent. Benedict Cumberbatch. It's Cumberbatch or Cumberland? It's Cumberbatch, right?
Batch.
Yeah, Batch. He's awesome, and he's from somewhere in Europe, probably the UK. I'm guessing. So he's awesome. Like he's awesome. I love a lot of the European shows like Sherlock. Oh, such a good show. I don't know. Europe in general. Europe's huge. Like there's such a huge variety in Europe. Like when we talk about North America, we're talking about United States and Canada and Mexico. Even though often I think Mexico more Central America, even though it's I guess technically part of North America. It is. But and there's huge variety in North America, but at the same time, it's nothing compared to Europe. So it's like you're talking about like when you say, do you want to visit? And I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do the Mediterranean kind of thing. I'd love to go to Italy. Would I want to go to England? Yes, I would, but for different reasons. I'd love to go to Italy as a tourist, but England I'd like to visit for, well, my wife's family is from there. It's Wargaming Central. And so I'd want to go there to do battle reports and conventions and stuff. Like there's different reasons for each place. So I guess I don't think about it very often beyond that. Rob Hobb. Hi Matt. Concerning all the talk about current and past time employees, I have two questions for you. One, who's doing the manly voiceovers at the beginning of your shows? You mean like the beat, bat rep, that kind of stuff? If that's what you mean, that's usually Dave. Except for a couple times I kind of parody Dave. Like the Learning Infinity bat reps, that's me. But that's me like imitating Dave. So most of the time you're hearing Dave. Two, have you ever had to let someone go because it didn't work out? If yes, how did you tell them and how did they react? Oh yeah, I've let go of people in the past. I've been self-employed for about 10 years now, almost. I've officially had a business open for over 9 years, so I'm guessing going into the 10th year. I'm in my 10th year. And I've hired and fired or laid off. Like, okay, if we're talking about firing and laying off, if you put those two together, it's probably about, I don't know, a dozen people that I've had to let go. Either because it wasn't working out or because financial reasons. I've done both. There's been more than one time I've had to let go of people because it just wasn't working, and there's been other times where it's like, well, sorry, the business just isn't doing well enough, we have to cut down, and well, I'm not going to fire myself. So, yeah. How do I tell them and how do they react? They've all reacted well. You know, some of them don't agree, but that's fine. I don't like doing it. That's why I've learned a lot by firing people about hiring people. And it's really changed how I hire them, so it kind of sets things up more properly, like hiring people and saying to them, we're just going to try this out, you know, kind of cushioning it, so if it doesn't work out, then we can it can be a lot less emotional and a lot less problematic to get rid of them. So, greetings from Austria, Robert. Ewan Stockwell Duo 1177. Hey Matt, I recently read an article about an incident with a donation to cancer research. The charity refused to receive a very large amount of money from a company because they deemed the company morally wrong. The company hosted porn content. Personally, I think this is stupid because when it comes to something like breast cancer, these things should be pushed to one side when you consider the cause. So what's your opinion? And given the same situation, a company you believe is immoral, example, a porn hosting website donated large amounts of money to mini wargaming. What would you do? Take it or leave it? Thanks for the great content, Ewan. That's a tough one because I can see why they would have a problem with it. And I would have a problem with it too, to be honest. It's kind of like, for example, I'm not a big fan of gambling. I'm anti-gambling, actually. And so when they host lotteries to support a cause, I don't like that. Because as much as it produces a lot of money, it's doing it by fueling a bit of a gambling addiction. And I know not everybody that does lotteries and stuff is a gambling addict, and that's fine. Just like not everybody who drinks is an alcoholic. I totally get that. And so considering where the money's coming from, and also you have to consider why would somebody who runs a company like pornography, which is obviously somebody whose morals and ethics are quite low, and I will just come out and say that I don't think there'll be any exceptions to that. Even if not everybody disagrees that it's bad or whatever, it's just whatever your ideals are on that. But if I believe something is really immoral, then why are they donating the money? Most likely because they're looking for a tax benefit or something that's like that. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe they knew somebody who had breast cancer and they wanted to donate to it. But I think if I were in their situation, I would do the same thing. I would not accept the money. So, and I understand people will disagree with me. That's why it's controversial, right? If everybody agreed with me that easily, then it wouldn't be a controversial subject. But yeah, the source of the money does matter because it's an ethical kind of thing. It's like, well, you're taking money from those people who are, you know, pornography creates addictions, like it really does, and it demoralizes things, and it does destroy the bonds in society and marriages and relationships and all that. It gives false expectations both to men and to women, and causes lots of problems. And so let me like profit off of that. Like, let's do something that's obviously morally wrong. Like, let's say somebody, let's take it extreme. Let's say somebody kills for a living. They are an assassin. They don't just kill bad people. They'll kill anybody. You just have to hire them. You know, you pay them $1 million and they'll kill whoever you want. And they decide they want to take some of this hard-earned money and donate it to a just cause. But that just cause knows what they do for a living. Like, think about how you'd feel about that and maybe relate it. Because maybe you don't agree that pornography is bad. And so to you it's like, well, it's not bad, so what's the big deal? Well, and to you that wouldn't be a big deal. And that, I understand that. So think about something that you believe is morally wrong. Like really morally wrong. And think, how would you react there? And that would kind of answer the question, one way or the other. So, it's a tough one, though. Altharius Omegon. Matt, what do you think the average age of your viewers are? I don't think I actually know, because we have, I do think too, but I can actually look at the statistics. And there isn't like an average, like I can say 32, because it's a range. We're popular amongst early 20s to, actually the demographic ranges, it used to be that I thought that it was mainly in the 20s, like 20 to 30 year olds were most popular there. But it's actually extended beyond that, whether it's because more people are online of those demographics or because we've attracted them somehow, I'm not quite sure. Maybe because now we're no longer in our 20s, we're in our 30s, we're getting, well Dave's turning 30 this year. He'll be old, like me. I'm like turning 33 this year, it's pretty old. Anyways, and so our demographics, I'd say it's like 20 to 30, and then there's the 30 to 50 year olds as well. Probably more like 30 to 40 or 30 to 45. That's your main span of where it's popular. Yes, there's the teenagers as well, and they do form a percentage, but not as big as everybody else. And then you have those few that are older too, and that's fine. But that's so it's actually quite a broad range, like 20. I'd almost say more like 25 to 45 would probably be where you'd see the biggest amount. Now that's a huge span, so it makes sense, but when you break it down to those individual areas like 20 to 30 and 30 to 35, 35 to 40, 40 to 45, you don't see like any obvious ones that are beating the other ones. So that is interesting. I know you don't want anything dirty or any swears on the site, but I don't think I've ever seen you play anyone that looked like they were younger than their 20s. Do you not like playing kids because they do not know the rules as well as older players? Or is it just a matter of older people can contact you easier and don't have to have their parents sign up for them? Anyway, love your guys' vids and such. As always, Altharius Omegon. I think that is a function of where we are. Because we're in a small city, away from big population areas, it's hard to get to us. And so who's going to come all this way? It's going to be somebody who can drive, and most likely some kid, a teenager for example, like he's 13 or 14 and says, I'd like to play mini wargaming, they're 5 hours away. The parents are going to be like, no. Whereas an adult could say, hey, it's 5 hours away. Psh, that's nothing, I can do that. And he comes down and he plays against us. And so I think that's just a function. If we were like in the middle of Toronto or some big population area, you'd probably see more younger kids because they'd have more access to us. So I think that's all it really is. Ed Markle, hi Matt, you mentioned your wife being interested in War Machine. Question, which faction is she interested in? Second time asking, maybe second time's a charm. I don't, I used to know this a long time ago. When we first got into miniature wargaming, she was interested in when we were looking at fantasy, she got into like wood elves. That doesn't mean she'd like Retribution of Sire, because as much as it's kind of like the elfish one, it doesn't look that way. I don't know if there was one that she had looked at. I don't think she's really looked at the game that much to have a faction she's interested in. So, Miso. Also, Matt, I think the last few weeks have been really good for mini wargaming. The consistency of content is really good, and then unexpected bids like behind the scenes, Codex Dan are like little treats. Thank you. I know it's expensive, but what also makes a huge difference is when you use new models and rules. It gets you guys excited and keeps the content contemporary and relevant to the hobby. Maybe you could have a strategy for using new models and spread out using new models over each mission in the campaign to get a full bang for buck. Yeah, I agree, definitely. And we do strive to get new stuff in our battle reports as often as possible. But it is expensive too. And it's not just expensive, it's time consuming. Because you think about it, a new model comes out, and that's when we get it. We can't. I'd love if Games Workshop gave us access like a month early. They sent us that. That would be spectacular, and we could help your sales too. But anyways, so it comes out, and we order it, and we get it like a few days later, and then we have to get it painted, and we do that through our painting partner program. So we got to ship it off to somebody to get it painted, and that takes time. So there's at least like a month, unless it's something we can really rush for some reason after the model comes out, before we even get access to it, and sometimes longer. And so it's hard. It's hard for that reason. And if you like Husky HD StarCraft, try out Trump StarCraft Hearthstone vids. I was a huge fan of StarCraft Shoutcast, but Hearthstone Arena vids are now where it's at. Not really interested in Hearthstone. I know it's gotten popular, but I haven't really gotten into it. Adri 210, hey Matt, not sure if this has been asked or said before, but have you thought about adding tertiary objectives to missions in your campaign? For example, have the possibility of the Blood Angels acquiring an ancient relic from the clutches of the orcs and then being able to give a said relic to a character. Or for example, the orcs can do an action called Loot, where they rummage through a piece of terrain or a wrecked Blood Angel vehicle to be able to find and build special gear. Just a thought that I had that could maybe add a little bit of fun to the missions. Cheers. Good idea. I like it. We might use that idea. No, that's a good idea. I was going to say the difficulty with that would be nothing really. It's just a matter of what fits. I mean, we're going to keep experimenting a lot. We're on our second narrative campaign, so we have a lot of perfecting to do with these. And I don't think you could ever perfect narrative campaigns, because since they're story driven, it means that you kind of constantly have to be inventing new things. Whereas like just a basic battle report, it's just like, just do different missions, play different armies, and you're set. So narratives will be more challenging in the long run, but worthwhile. Dogstar, hey Matt, or dear Matt, dear, thank you. I was wondering if yourself and Dave are looking to take up more 40k armies in the future, as Dave seems to play mainly Blood Angels and Chaos Space Marines, and you are primarily a Tyranid Necron player. Are you not worried that your bat reps will become too repetitious, as most of your bat reps will contain at least one of those 4 armies? If so, what army has caught your eye? Thanks for really great content and keep up the good work. Variety is something that we do want, and we've been able to do that by having people like Jay and Owen and Dan working for us who play different armies. We are building our Space Marine army, of course. It's really hard to start a new army. There's a lot, because there's a couple other armies I'm interested in, but you really have to get into an army, and you need to be able to see that from us too, that we have to be really interested in the army, because it's hard to fake it when, here's an army I've got to collect thousands of points of guys for it, we've got to look through war gear and fluff and all that kind of stuff, and that's hard to do if you're just not actually interested in it. And so we try to get that variety then from the players that come in and play against us. And yeah, you do see primarily Tyranids, Necrons, and Chaos, even more than Blood Angels, when we're playing their battle reports. But am I worried that it'll get repetitive? Well, we've been doing it for this many years, and so far, you know, people keep asking for different stuff, and that's fine, but we're growing and getting more viewership and more Vault members, and so in the perfect world, we'd have 10 different employees doing 40k who each had 2 or 3 armies, and we'd be able to have all sorts of matchups all the time. So it's tough though, because Warhammer 40k has a lot of armies. A lot of armies. Like one game has so much variety, and that's great. I love it. Warhammer 40k is one of our favorites because of that variety. Like there's such a large scale to all the stuff that you can get. So Warlord. Heck yeah, Steve is working for Mini Wargaming. I've been considering getting a Vault membership. Now that I know Steve will be working for the site, I'm getting a Vault membership. That's great, because we need a few more people to sign up so we can pay for him. Until then, he's working for free. I'm just joking. Well, you know, having enough people sign up that would make up for his cost, I wouldn't complain about either. So, and then he can add them some more so we can hire even more people. That's what our goal is. Andaman 5. Hi Matt and everyone else reading this. Why is the wargaming community so cheap and always complaining about prices? If people really think prices are way too high, there's many hobbies and free things to do outside. We all enjoy the game, 40k, but the complaining I see online has been brutal lately. That's not new. There's always some price complaining thread. What you have to realize is the internet can give a false perception as to what reality is. I know that's crazy, and it's just a huge insight. I'm very smart to have said that. But it is. What you get is you get an incredibly loud minority, and because they're so loud, you know, you kind of get an impression as to the way things are. And I'm guilty of this as well, like making these interpretations, because there will be time I'll put up a new video, and when I'm particularly emotionally attached to it, it's like there's like 10 good comments, and I'm like, yay! And there's one negative one, and I'm like, oh, everybody hates it. And you have to be able to like push that away. And it's something you always have to work on. That small percentage of people who are negative affect you more than the large percentage who are positive, because you need tons of positive reinforcement to make up for that little negative reinforcement. And so these people complaining about prices, like even if you have this huge thread with 100 people or even 1,000 people, there are millions and millions and millions, probably tens of millions of people in this hobby. And so when you see a thread of just dozens of them, it doesn't accurately depict what the majority of people say. The other reason that you're going to see a lot of it is people complain about the price of everything. Like, let's think about that for a second. Gas. Everybody complains about gas. I mean, like the ones that you use to fuel your car. And the other type as well. But they all complain about it, no matter what. They've been complaining about it for years, forever, since I was a kid. Oh, look at that. Gas is 55 cents a liter. I remember back in my day when it was 45 cents. It's like, and then like a few years later, oh, it's at 75 cents. I remember when it was so cheap at 55 cents. And then, oh, it's 85 cents. 75 cents was so much cheaper. And now it's $1.40 a liter, and everybody's complaining about that. And you know, it's because we have limited money and we want to be able to spend more of it on things we want. And then we go to the grocery store and we complain about prices of food, and then we go to somewhere else and we complain about the prices of a computer game, and then we complain about the price. It's just what people do. People like to complain, and price is an easy thing to complain about. Like, what is the value of a Space Marine? Like, it's what the market will buy. The basic economic way of looking at value, like what should you price something at? It is what the market will buy it at. And Games Workshop, as much as their revenue isn't as healthy as it used to be, and their number of customers has gone down a lot, I don't know if that's just a function of their price. I think there's a function of a lot of different things. So that's why. People like to complain, and people like to complain about prices even more. And on top of that, it's a minority that are very loud and very vocal. And so it kind of gives sometimes the wrong impression. I'm sure if you did a survey and you asked everybody, would you like Games Workshop's products to be cheaper, everybody would say yes. But except for maybe like some insanely rich guy who's like, well, I don't care, I've got billions of dollars left over, so whatever. like Tony Stark. I'm sure he wouldn't complain about Games Workshop prices. But of course, like if you ask that, if you fill in the blank for any other type of product, would you like milk to be cheaper? Would you like gas to be cheaper? Would you like video games to be cheaper? Like people are always going to say yes. It's like saying, would you like more money? Most people will say yes. Very few people would say no. Crazy Kill Switch. Other than Tyranids, favorite 3 races in 40k and why? Oh, Tyranids are so high up there that it's like the next one goes all the way down there. Necrons, since they were retconned, I really like. I know a lot of people didn't like the retcon, but that's normal. If you kind of get used to somebody's or something's fluff or lore and then it gets changed, of course you're not going to like that. But I do like the Necron fluff a lot. The Tau, not so much. I like Eldar. I do like their fluff. Space Marines and Imperial Guard is tougher. Like they're just kind of simple, which is okay. They kind of need that. You need that staple thing. And you need the humans, right? And the genetically modified humans. So they're not as interesting to me. I've always found the Xenos to be more interesting. Tau, meh, I don't find them very interesting. What else is there? Chaos. The Chaos is cool. I have mixed feelings about the Chaos because it's like the source of the most of the dark stuff, which I don't like all the demonology and things like that. But it also, the whole warp concept is kind of cool, I have to admit. So, the Orcs are neat, but if I had to pick 3, I would say Eldar. Definitely not Dark Eldar. Dark Eldar are at the bottom of the entire list. I just think they're just a little too much. So I'd have to say Necrons, Eldar, and I guess Space Marines in general. I know there's tons of chapters, but yeah, that's what I'd say. All right. Black Orc Down. Ha, see what you did there. Hi Matt, again thanks for considering my comment from previous Sit and Talk and dedicating your time to answering me. You're welcome. Regarding my compliment about Mini Wargaming and Beasts of War, please accept it in the good spirit it was intended. I was not being derogatory about their content. It's just my opinion. You're good, no problem. It's hard on my end to receive compliments where it's comparing to somebody else because, well, it's not like I want to bash them. I do actually think they're good. So when somebody says, hey, you're better than so-and-so, I'm like, thanks. But I don't want them to think that I'm like, yeah, I know, they suck. Because they don't. They're good. I'm going to sneeze, and my phone just beeped, and it reminded me to turn it off. There we go. Okay. Didn't sneeze now. Beasts of War used to have great 40k Tactica and other content, less now. I appreciate what you say that they have wider appeal through other war games, but as they were neutered by Games Workshop, they had little choice. Well, it's interesting because they were affected by Games Workshop. I think it's still more of a choice that they're choosing to cover a lot of other stuff. It's also probably a product of their business. The way they do business. Like they do a lot of advertising. We don't do any advertising except for like the YouTube stuff, which we don't even do. We just kind of like, yes, you could put ads on our web, on our videos. And that is the extent to which we sell advertising. And I guess our Paint Your program, but that's a swap more than selling. Whereas you can, if you watch their videos, you know that they sell a lot of it. They have like really professional video ads. They have really good graphical ads on their websites. Like it's a big part of what they do. And so it makes sense that they would cover these games because those companies are going to come to them and purchase advertising from them. So of course they're going to want to support the people that pay their advertising. So it's probably a function of that as well. And you know, the Games Workshop, there were some things that happened in the past with them as well. And so that might put a sour taste in their mouth. But they still play those games a lot. So it's not like it's hard. It's hard as a content producer to kind of reconcile everything together. I like your idea of looking to their videos for ideas and refer you to my other comment posted on the Sit and Talk. I understand what you say about Mini Wargaming Beasts being different, and I don't view the businesses as direct competitors, more as complementary. Which again is why I made my previous comment as a Sit and Talk about shared content. I apologize if my compliment made you feel awkward, but you have often referred to Beast's quality of production. I agreed is good, but as I commented previously, I personally feel I identify with your product more closely. Keep up the good work. Big smiles. Necronomicon. Got it. Hey Matt, I have recently started playing 40k with a friend of my school's games club. However, the club only lasts for 2 hours, and we have been unable to finish a 1,500-point game in that time. That can be a problem. Do you have any ideas of how we could speed the game up in order to finish a whole game without doing a smaller points game? Well, that's a good question, and I think I can help you because that's what we try to do too. We try to do our games as fast as possible. Not like rushing, but we try to figure out ways to get the time down because we add time on top of it by filming it. So a few of my suggestions would be, one, don't be really super anal about movement. Be fair, like don't always take an extra inch, but like just do things quickly. Like if you're moving a big block of guys, then you measure the first couple of them, they're 6 inches, and then just kind of get everybody behind them as best as possible. Like just do it to be faster, not to try to cheat and get that extra inch. If you have rules that you guys disagree on, if it's small things that are going to be hard to find in the rule book really quickly, then what you can do is the simple 4+ rule, where you both choose one and you say, okay, I think it should be this way, I think it should be this way. We roll. On a 4+, it's my way. On a 1, 2, or 3, it's your way. And that actually speeds up the game a lot. Knowing your army and knowing the rules obviously is a big deal. 1,500-point game should be able to get done in 2 hours, but that's tough. Games Workshop, or the Warhammer 40k games, depending on the army, make a big difference. Like for example, if I bring a Tyranid army with 1,500 points, I could bring 180 guns. Easy. That's only 720 points. And I still have room for all my other stuff. And that's always going to take a while. Necrons tend to play longer because they have extra rolls, like reanimation. Any army like Chaos, where there's all sorts of extra rolls they have to do, like the Chaos, or the Winds of Chaos table, or or psychic powers, or gifts of mutation, and boons, and all that kind of stuff. Anything that requires more rolls is going to be it. If you have a lot of terrain on your board, which you should, and you have all these difficult terrain rolls to make, that can take longer. There's a lot of things that can make your game longer, and I'm not suggesting you don't do those because they can also be what makes the game fun. But that is typically stuff that happens. Like when I'm building a list and I know it's our second game of the day and we only have till 5 and I see we're kind of cramped for time, I'll typically try to make it a smaller model count. Even though I know it would be better with the 180 gaunts, I'll still bring more monstrous creatures just because it will help for time. And hold on, it keeps buzzing. I am recording. Alright, almost done. We got like 10 minutes to go. So hopefully that helps. But it is hard. 1,500-point games in 2 hours, you can get done in that amount of time if you really know your armies really well. And your armies aren't the ones that are super long to play. Maximus the Lord. Salutations, Matt. Though I am somewhere between an agnostic and an atheist. Somewhere between agnostic and atheist. So I guess you mean that you don't think you can prove it, but you're leaning more towards atheist. That's probably what Picasso this week mean. I find the topic of religion fascinating. There's one quandary that I would like to share with you. Oh boy. So religion alert. I guess I forgot to give the disclaimer at the beginning of the show. But sometimes religion and politics comes up. So if you are easily offended, please stop watching now. I have no idea what the question is. I haven't read it yet. So let's say hundreds of years from now, when humanity is spacefaring, we meet a Xenos race with a religion dictating, like our own, that they are the highest beings and that their God is omnipotent. Of course, neither of us can prove the other incorrect. In both cultures, it is said God only made one world and set one race as the dominant one. If it was one God, the Bible would be inaccurate, as he obviously made 2 worlds and 2 sets of Adams and Eves. If it were more than one God, then God is not omnipotent. That's interesting. That's a very interesting point. It's a tough one because it's a hypothetical situation that may never happen. I'm not saying it can't, because I personally believe there's tons of other worlds out there with other people on it. I don't think the Bible says that he only made one world. Nowhere does it say that. It just talks about this world. So I have no problem with the idea of actually, in Mormonism, we actually believe that he's created worlds without end, as we say. So like tons of worlds, and he continues to, and he populates them with his children. So what I would expect to see if we went out is to find more people like us. Would their cultures be the same? No, obviously not, because we look at not just our world, and the cultures are all different, languages are different. Would the worlds look the same? No, they wouldn't have to. So either would the biological makeup be the same? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But we would look similar. as much as like we look similar today, because there's a big variety in the way we look as human beings. So that is what I would believe would happen. So, and actually saying there's more than one God doesn't mean that he's not omnipotent. Just because two people are all powerful doesn't mean that one isn't. So it is interesting though. What I wouldn't expect to see, although I'm not like saying it wouldn't happen, would be an alien race of our level of intelligence that doesn't look like us. That's what I wouldn't expect to see. But it hasn't happened yet, so it's hard to say. And I know there's like lots of those conspiracy theories of UFOs and all that kind of stuff, but Sticky Blue Toffee. What are you most looking forward to for the up-and-coming Warhammer 40k update? And how is it going to feel to know Jay was right? Tyranid Tactica video. Oh, that because he mentioned that 7th edition was coming out. I was like, no way, it's not happening. And yeah, he was right. I'm surprised that they're doing an update. Not that they don't need to update the rules to make them better, but just because it was only 2 years ago that they had it, and I had heard serious rumors that the next edition of Fantasy was coming out this summer, which if they do that, it smacks a little of desperation, to be honest. They've really increased how quickly they're putting out new codexes, which I think is great. But their sales haven't shown that, and that's the troublesome thing. And I don't think they're going into business, but you're definitely going to see a change in the marketplace. But it should be something that when they look at their financial reports and they're like, hey, we just rapidly released tons of new products at a rate that we've never done before, and our sales went down slightly. Ooh, that's not a good sign, because the new product releases is what really drives sales, and it really, really does drive sales. It gets people excited, they buy new stuff, they buy new digital products, they buy new books, they buy new models. And so the fact that sales were down, that's tricky. So, I actually just lost my train of thought. What was the question? Oh, Warhammer 40k update, right, that's what I was talking about. That was the weirdest thing. My mind just thought of something else, and then I forgot what I was saying. So yeah, but at the same time, it's fine. I'm disappointed they're updating, but it's kind of for a selfish reason. It's because we've been recording a ton of battle reports lately, and we release them on a consistent basis. So we don't like, hey, we made 5 this week, so let's put out 5. No, we actually release them on a consistent basis, so people come to expect that, and that's good to have a schedule. And we actually have enough 40k battle reports as of now to go into like July. But they're 6th edition, so we're not going to be able to do that. We're going to have to dump them all. So we're going to have a special, I don't mean dump as in you don't get to see them, but I mean like we're going to have to put them all out. So once 7th edition comes out, we're probably going to have like a week or 2 after it comes out, because hopefully people won't think that the moment it comes out we should be showing 7th edition battle reports, because that's impossible, because we haven't even got the book to be able to make battle reports. So unless you want us to take a couple weeks off of even posting battle reports, instead what we'll probably do is like 1 or 2 weeks of like a super content rich, tons and tons of battle reports go out, and we kind of dump all the 6th edition ones that we have. In the meantime, we use those 2 weeks to do some 7th edition ones, and then get those out after that. So that's probably what's going to happen. What am I looking forward to the update? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to change. I heard that there's going to be like a psychic phase. I don't like that idea, because I hate the magic phase in fantasy. I think it's the stupidest, most... If you kind of accept that it's okay, it's just going to be this randomly... I kind of accept it as what fantasy is, which is like super ridiculous magic. But it maybe will be a boost to Tyranids, because what I'm hearing from the rumors is that you generate a number of warp charge dice plus the ones of the psychic levels, and then all the psychics get to share that. So it's possible that the Tyranids will benefit from that, because they'll get to cast more psychic powers than they could before. But it's going to be more random, and it talks about them having a pool to be able to dispel your stuff. But if they can dispel like blessings on yourself, oh, that's just going to get annoying. I hate that about fantasy. I hate when I'm like, going to give myself +1 strength, and the other guy's, no you're not, you're going to roll some dice. I hate that. I really, 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 really hate that about Warhammer Fantasy. It's my least favorite aspect of the game. And I like fantasy overall, but I hate how they do magic. It's less random is usually better. Like I have nothing wrong. I have nothing against random, but you don't have to have randomness on top of random. Like randomly generate your psychic powers and have like no control over which one you get, unless you like the Primaris. and then you randomly roll how many dice you get, and then your opponent randomly rolls, and then you roll randomly to make your test, and then they roll randomly to, it's too much random. And it just basically makes you throw out tactics, and I don't like that. So I don't want to see that, and I know that's what the rooms are going to be. The fact that they've updated it so you have the Unbound thing, where you don't have a force organization chart. I know a lot of people are like, oh, then people are going to bring 10 Riptides. Well, guess what? People already make cheese lists that are stupid, and you just don't play against those people. And if you don't have a choice except to play against those people, then I feel sorry for you anyways, even with the force organization chart, because all that's going to happen is the ridiculous cheese list will get more ridiculous. That's all it is. And so what? So if there were already ridiculous cheese lists that you're playing against. So if your friend is just going to bring 10 Riptides and be like, well, I'm allowed to do it so I can do whatever I want, then you stop playing with your friend. And quite frankly, maybe he's not even a very good friend. That's just the way I see it. If you watch our battle reports, for the most part, we try to keep things not super cheesy competitive. And we find that we enjoy the game a lot more like that. So I like the idea of the Unbound, because it kind of just, like, look at our narrative campaigns. They're a good example. Kind of just do whatever. We sometimes adhere to the force organization chart. It's more like a guideline than actual rules, kind of like the pirate code. But so the fact that they're like coming out and saying, yeah, you can do it without it is fine. Tournaments might have to get adjusted so that they're like, no, we're going to still use the force organization chart, or we'll give extra points for that, or whatever it is. But because otherwise, then you will see it's tournaments that are going to hurt the most. But I couldn't care less about tournaments for 40k. For myself, like if I were to create my own game like Dark Potential, I would want to make it tournament worthy, because I think that's a cool part of the meta. But I personally don't care about tournaments for 40k. I don't go to them. I don't bother playing in them, because I used to, and I just didn't like them, because you'd always go up against the cheese list over and over and over again, and it was just boring. So yeah, that's what I think. And yes, Jay, you are right if you are watching this. Drackle Rye. All right. Hey Matt, how tall are you? I'm going to read the rest of your comment. I'm usually pretty good at working out someone's height based on their appearance/proportions and the environment around them, but because we almost never see you waist down, it's very hard. My current guess is 6'2". I am 6'2". That's a pretty good guess. I think I'm 6'2.5" or something like that, but 6'2". So your guess was right on. So if that is a representation of how you normally are able to guess, then yes, you do have a knack for guessing somebody's height. Jacastoli. Hi Matt, just joined the vault since I watch mini wargaming religiously. Ooh, I like that. I want to support the company. Thank you. My question is, how far back do you and Dave go? Is in your relationship work-related, or are you both close friends as well? We're both members of the same church, and I met him when I was a kid. His family moved in to the area, so they started coming to our ward or congregation. I don't know how old we were. I do know that we started hanging out when I was around 14 and he was around 11, because I live out in the my parents live out in the country. My dad had a big barn, and his dad was coming over often to work on his car that he actually had stored in the barn. He was doing body work and other stuff. I don't know what all he was doing. And he also worked periodically for my dad as well, I believe, because he's a mason, like does masonry work, and my dad's a contractor. So, and when he would come over, it was during the summer, and he would bring Dave, and we would play BattleTech. That was the first game we got into, which was awesome. It's good nostalgia. And we eventually got into role-playing games. Started off with Advanced Fighting Fantasy, if anybody knows what that is. Actually, the same people who created Games Workshop, which I think is kind of cool. It's like our fate was sealed from the beginning. And we eventually got into like games like Mech Warrior and role-playing games that I created. And Mech Warrior being like the role-playing game Mech Warrior, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, so we kind of grew up together. I was 3 years older than him, which when you're a teenager is a huge difference. Like now we're just both adults and you don't even know there's a difference. And so I was always the games master and doing that kind of stuff. And we had our group, like my brothers would play. I have two younger brothers and an older brother, but my younger brothers would play. So, and we went to church together, and yeah, so we kind of grew up together once we were teenagers, became good friends then. And I guess that's the origin story. So one day we can make a TV series about it, the origins of mini wargaming. Except we'll like make it much more dark and gritty, right? Yes. much more dark and gritty. Like we'll throw in some sort of like conflicts of like whatever, just to make it interesting. All right, we're just about we are out of time. Captain Obvious. Yes, Matt. Listen to the lackey, Chris. You need more lackeys. Also orcs. What did you say 2 weeks ago in the sit and talk that made you everybody think you're a lackey?
Because you were hiring Steve.
Yeah. So what?
I said, yeah, we need more lackeys around here.
Oh.
Because you were talking about the expansion and hiring more people, and I said, yeah, we need more lackeys.
Okay. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So why does Steve think that you're going to be his lackey?
I don't know.
Because it wouldn't be the other way around.
Because the internet's weird.
That is true. That is very, very, very true. I think I'm out of time. I know I used up like the first 15 minutes asking you questions, but hey, I've answered a lot of questions. I think I can ask too. Right? 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 Okay, I'm going to end it there. I only got through 4 pages out of the 16 that were there, but well, what are you going to do? So, thank you for watching, and as always, if you want to leave your comments, nobody's going to be watching by this point. Anybody who's watching by this point knows what to do for leaving comments, which is, don't leave them on YouTube, leave them on Mini Wargaming, and thumbs up the ones you want. Don't thumbs down the ones you don't want. Thank you for watching again. This is Matthew from Mini Wargaming. Happy Wargaming.